I want to welcome everybody to the Tuesday, February 10th, 2015 meeting of Health and Human Services Board. Many thanks to board members and others for making it here tonight. Not easy on the roads, I'm told. I had the short commute from downtown Hudson, so it was not a problem. But for those of you that were coming from either east or west for this, I know that wasn't easy. Thank you for taking the time to be here. Colleen, I guess we'll move ahead with roll call.
Heather Logelin.
Here.
Christopher Babbitt.
Here.
Paulette Anderson.
Here.
Howard Novotny.
Here.
Chris Kilber.
Here.
Ron Kiesler.
Here.
Lisa Ramsey. Deb Rasmussen. Shayla Liebfried. Here.
Thank you, Colleen. We'll move ahead with approval of the minutes from January 13, 2015. As usual, Colleen has included those notes in your packet. Hopefully everybody's had a chance to take a look. Are there any corrections, additions, deletions, or other comments about the minutes from January? Any corrections or additions to January minutes? Hearing and seeing none, if I could have a motion from the floor for approval of the minutes. Supervisor Anderson. Second. Second by Supervisor Novotny. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes from January 13, 2015 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Thank you. Minutes are approved. We have an ambitious agenda tonight, and I'm very pleased to move ahead with that in a moment after we ask for public comment. We do have a gentleman here who has been with us before. Please approach the podium, sir, and although most of us know you, if you could introduce yourself one more time, I'd appreciate it.
Is this on? Yes.
It is.
My name is John Strom. Laverne Hoytom and I are here. We're available all evening and after for questions or any information anybody needs on the topic of industrial wind turbines. And thank you very much.
Thank you for being here again, both of you. You've been terrific at helping us gain information on the subject. And as you know, that is an issue on the agenda tonight for some discussion. Any other public commentary at this time? Yes. If you could step to the podium and share your name.
My name's Brenda Solsig. I'm from the town of Forest. Here because of the wind turbine issues that are on the agenda this evening. And I apologize, I'm like this driving in that nasty weather from northeast St. Croix County to here. But I did have a few things. I'd noticed there was the summary from the Wind Siting Council on the packet information. If I could, I do have the minority report summary and some other things that I think are important to the subject of industrial wind turbines and health, as well as some information from Brown County Board of Health, who you know has declared the Shirley Wind Project a human health hazard. That is the same developer that plans on bringing 44 turbines to the town of Forest. There is also something here out of a study that was done in Australia where they have made the link between the low frequency infrasound and how it's affecting people's health, the sleep deprivation, the headaches, the dizziness, and so forth. So if at some point I could just put a little packet together, that would be great. I won't take the time to do that now. And of course would ask your permission to do so.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your being here and glad you're safe after the difficult drive down here. Thank you very much. We will be discussing that issue a little bit later on the agenda as well. So thank you again very much. Further public comment at this time on issues on or off the agenda? One more call for public commentary. Thank you very much to those who have stepped forward and shared their interest in the meeting and in offering advice and counsel to us. We'll move ahead now with the business items, and I'm particularly pleased to have John Coughlin and Mary Sue Ash here from Success by Six. And Fred, if you'd like to do a more formal introduction, feel free to do that.
I think you did just fine. They have but I will add that they have a presentation, and in the board packet, you'll see that background information provides a little bit of detail, but specifically in mid-January, the executive board of the Success by Six met, and John or Mary Sue might be able to talk a little bit more about how they've organized their action teams, and in particular, there is a action team that is related to government, and so they're here to present tonight, particularly to that issue. So with that, I think you're all set up at the podium.
Thank you. And yes, I'm Mary Sue Ash, and I'm coordinator of Success by Six and retired Pupil Services Director from the Baldwin-Woodville School District. And we're going to be talking about Success by Six tonight and sharing some information. We have been going for about the last 10 years, and John can talk more about that, and have recently reorganized our executive board. We have members across Polk, Pierce, and St. Croix County who are now divided into 5 action teams, one of which is the government action team, and that is the one that Fred Johnson had, and Chris Babbitt and Ron Kiesler are on, and Heather Loughlin over here is on the healthcare action team for Success by Six Executive Board. Okay. Good to go? Good, good. Okay, I'm going to be sharing some information, and tonight we're looking at what is one of the most hidden health crises facing our communities today. And this has to do with our children and building a foundation for their success, for their schooling, for their health, for their well-being, and for their future life. It's about getting them started early on the right track. Did you know that if you change the first 5 years of life, you change everything? And if you change those years, the benefits will pay back for generations. So why, you might ask, should we be interested in early childhood development? Well, there's a window of opportunity in the first few years of life. And actually, the early childhood years are the most important years of our lives. Babies learn rapidly from the moment of birth, and they grow best when they have affection, attention, stimulation, in addition to good nutrition and proper health. And a child's experiences really are the chief architect of the brain. Stress and fear can cause cognitive and developmental delays. And you know, the best predictor of healthy development throughout childhood is secure attachment to a trusted parent or caregiver. And did you know that who we are is basically set by the time we go to school? It determines how we view ourselves in our world, whether we believe we are capable, valued, and accepted, and whether we feel that we can trust others. And why is that important here? Because the beliefs and patterns of behavior shaped in our early years carry forward throughout our lifetimes. The research is clear. Development starts very early, brains are built over time, and capacity for change decreases over time. What you're looking at are the slides of 3 brains, a newborn, 6 months, and 2 years. And during the first few years, 200 new neural connections are formed every second. And these neural connections, through the interaction of the baby's genes, along with the experiences and the environment that the baby is in, basically in what's called a serve and return. So that means that, as in tennis, you serve something and you return. This going back and forth with people. That really is what develops those connections. And we have some critical periods of development. Some begin at birth and some are later on. And what you see there is on the left are different areas as vision, emotional control, habitual ways of responding, and language. And you notice those, if you look along the bottom, going back.
That's advanced by itself.
Okay, going along the bottom, you see the age. And if you look early on, you can see that the clear points are, the clear places are where that's really important. And then they wane, and basically, oftentimes they start waning by age 5. So the barriers to social mobility and children's educational achievement emerge at a very young age. And you can see there, and they also continue to grow without intervention. This slide shows that 18 months is the age with which disparities in vocabulary begin to appear. And along the bottom, you can see 18 months, 24, and 36 months, and the cumulative vocabulary on the other axis there. And at 18 months, they start to diverge, and babies that are born with parents that have more high income and are more educated tend to increase their vocabulary much faster than parents who may not have completed high school. And these continue on so that when you hit school, we find that many of the children are lagging behind unless they have had a language-enriched environment in their early years. So the early experiences and environments in which children develop in their earliest years can have lasting impact on later success in school and in life. And significant adversity and stress impairs development in the first 3 years, and the more adversity and stress the child faces, the greater the odds of developmental delay. And here again, you can see the number of risk factors along the bottom and the chance of developmental delay by age 3. And some of the risk factors we're looking at can be poverty, caregiver mental illness, child maltreatment, single parent, low maternal education, which have a cumulative effect. And in this study, children exposed to as many as 6 additional risk factors faced a 90 to 100% likelihood of having one or more delays in their cognitive, emotional, and physical health. And why is this? Because toxic stress can damage the developing brain architecture and the body's stress response systems that then lead to lifelong problems in learning, behavior, and both physical and mental health. So this one says 3-to-1 odds of adult heart disease. The risk factors for adult heart disease are embedded in adverse childhood experiences. And why is this? Because again, early experiences actually get into the body with lifelong effects, not just on cognitive and emotional development, but also on long-term physical health as well. And a growing body of evidence now links significant adversity in childhood to increased risk of a long range of adult health problems, including diabetes, hypertension, stroke, obesity, and some forms of cancer. Almost every public health challenge we face. And the graph shows that adults who recall having 7 to 8 serious adverse experiences in childhood are 3 times more likely to have cardiovascular disease as adult. And children between birth and 3 years of age are the most likely age group to experience some sort of maltreatment. So how does adversity build into the body? And you can see from this slide that it starts with, over on the left, again, that early experiences can affect what happens later on in adult life. And basically, it can happen 2 different ways. By biological embedding during the sensitive periods, basically what's happening as the experiences gets in the body, and also cumulative effect over time. So over time, over and over gets into the body, which then produces disruption and comes to, in later life, which can be decades later, more disorder and disease and health behavior, and also some low educational achievement. Families who have low income and low education levels may be especially vulnerable with the biological embedding of disease risk because of greater exposure to stress in their life, and also sometimes limited access to healthful foods and consumption of energy-dense products, contributing to a rising prevalence of obesity and diabetes among low-income children. So later disease, adult disease, may be seen as the latent outcome of critical events that occurred earlier, much earlier in their life. From a policy perspective, then, if we look over there and say that much of this is happening in early childhood, it may be more effective for us to look at the origins of physical and mental health in the early years and do something here rather than attempt to modify adult behaviors and improve access to health care later on. Programs to modify the behavior of adults as encouraging better nutrition and increased exercise or reduced smoking, substance abuse, risk-taking behaviors, the impact can be limited by increasing the difficulty of changing our behavior as we get older, and also by the need to overcome biological vulnerabilities that have been embedded physiologically as a result of early adversity, and by shifting responsibility toward adults and away from changing the circumstances that shaped them. So although early adversity can lead to greater vulnerability later in life, positive experiences can decrease such risk, and in some cases across generations. So policy and practice can work together by helping to reduce stress in early life by focusing on reducing the stress and increasing the capacity of early childhood programs to work with children who experience toxic stress.
Hand off. So the achievement gap starts early, but it grows as time goes on. Children from low-wage families, as we saw in one of the earlier slides, are typically 1 to 2 years behind in language. Preschoolers from high-income families score 60% higher in cognitive tests than those in the lowest brackets. Now, we all benefit if we can close that gap by working together. You can see quality early learning has been proven to lower crime rates, teenage pregnancy. The other things on that left-hand side of the arrow, quality early learning increases success in school. It increases graduation rates. It makes sure our workforce is ready. It increases job productivity and community engagement. It benefits us all. Did you know investing in children during the early years is the best economic development that a community can make? That's a statement from Art Rolnick, who's the retired Vice President and Director of Research for the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis. And who else agrees? Neuroscientists, educators, researchers, healthcare professionals, community leaders, and other respected economists. Some of the studies that have been done show that $4 to $9 in returns are gained for every dollar that's spent on early childhood programs. Providing children with a healthy environment in which to grow and learn is not only good for their developments, economists have shown that high-quality early childhood programs bring impressive results on the investment, and the public gets the vast amount of those benefits. Program participants have been followed from childhood through adulthood. They have increased earnings, as we saw in the previous slide, and then there's those public returns. Early action pays off today and tomorrow. You can see by investing early, James Heckman's study showed that prenatal investment is the best investment we can make in those early up to age 3, and then on our preschool programs as well. And by the time you reach adulthood, job training has the lowest actual return on investment. Here's some of the lessons from the Federal Reserve's research. Invest in quality, involve parents, start early, reach the most at-risk populations, teach cognitive and non-cognitive skills, and bring it to scale. Moving forward, we want to try to, they recommend prenatal and early infant home visits for the at-risk mothers, access to health care, more parent education, quality child care, and access to preschool. So we believe the solution is Success by Six. Minnesota has the Early Childhood Family Education Program, a state-sponsored program. Basically, what we've tried to do with Success by Six is recreate some of those elements here in St. Croix County. Success by Six was developed about 30 years ago in Minneapolis. It's a flexible, sustainable model. We started working on our program in 2005, developing our vision, our mission, our priorities, and our logic model. We know it works. We're just trying to get the word out to folks. There's our vision that everybody in the 3 counties served by our United Way, that that we can achieve this mission for families. Put another way, our big, hairy, audacious goal is that every child in western Wisconsin reaches school ready to learn and reaches adulthood ready to contribute to society. So how are we making that happen? Right now, what's happening is a Family Resource Center parent educator connects with parents both in prenatal classes and at the hospital. They assess the family's needs, they provide information, they invite them to a baby and me class held at the hospital, or if there's risk factors, then they'll invite the family to participate in home visiting twice per month. Our hospital partners are covering the costs of those educator visits and those on-site classes. Family Resource Center Play and Learn classes are offered in many communities, and some of the school districts are doing Positive Solutions, which are parent-child classes. United Way invests very significant funds every year on home visiting programs, as well as some of the counties are putting money towards that effort as well. We'd like to make sure that all childcare in our service area are 3 of 5 stars on the Young Star rating scale. We've sponsored developmental screenings to make sure kids are, we catch any risk factors early, and we provide a lot of information and resources for families and others in need. So, how can you help? How can the community help? By understanding the importance and impact of the early childhood development, taking action to spread the word about the importance, and financially supporting Success by Six. Each of us can play a role in making western Wisconsin the best place to raise a child. A couple more things. We can support young children by developing a joint comprehensive plan for their wellness, especially those at risk. We provide services that promote their safety, their health, and their welfare, improve behavioral and mental health, and increasing food and shelter security for families. So now you know, if you change the first 5 years of life, you change everything. Do we have a few more minutes for about a 3-minute video? I can pull that up.
Yeah, I think so, John. Thank you.
That's me at 4 months old. I'm one of the thousands of little miracles born into poverty every day.
Well, I don't know why we're not getting anything. Try something else here. This one.
That's me at 4 months old. I'm one of the thousands of little miracles born into poverty every day. That's my mom. She's 17 and never finished high school. She's got some big dreams for me, but she's alone and she's scared.
This is my first birthday. That's my grandma.
my cousin Tanya, and my boyfriend Kevin. We all live together. It's cold and crowded. I hope we move soon. I don't like Kevin. He's always yelling. This is my second birthday. We're all at daycare, strapped in watching TV again. I wish I could just run around. This is my third birthday. My brother William's taking care of me while my mom sleeps. She works the night shift, so we can't turn up the TV, but we get to go to bed whenever we want. This is my fourth birthday. We're sleeping at my aunt's this month. I don't know when my dad's coming home, but I'm hungry and I miss him. This is my fifth birthday. This is my first day of kindergarten. I'm tired. I'm hungry. I'm unprepared because I didn't get the right start. I'm twice as likely to be in special education. 30% more likely to never go to college. 70% more likely to be arrested for a violent crime. Become a teen parent. Drop out of school. Never hold a job. Spend the rest of my life in poverty. My mom plays with me all the time. She smiles a lot now, and she knows she's not alone anymore. Grandma Tanya and Kevin read me a story every night before I go to bed. I go to my school every day, where I get to run and play and see all my new friends. Will and I go to preschool together. Today we learned about dinosaurs and played a counting game. Every morning, my dad and I brush our teeth and eat breakfast together. We have our own place now, and I know we'll always be together. This is my first day of kindergarten. I'm rested, I'm eager, I'm confident, I'm curious, I'm prepared. I'm ready. I am your future. Change the first 5 years, and you change everything. Anyone interested in investing?
All right. Here we go. Questions? We certainly appreciate your time letting us have a few minutes today to talk to you about something we're just very, very passionate about. We believe so strongly that these first 5 years are really the way to break the cycle of poverty. So thanks for listening. Questions?
John, maybe just a comment and a thank you again to both you and Mary Sue for coming. As most of you know, this is right up my alley, so I am aware of a lot of the research in this area, and if you happen to be somebody who relies heavily on research for helping you make decisions about situations like this, the amount of research available in this area is huge. And as far as I'm concerned, the research is pretty much settled on this issue. I don't think there's really any controversy involved in this. The path is quite clear, and I'm very proud of the things that St. Croix County is already doing to help support Success by Six and other programs who are part of the mission, but clearly in the months and years to come there may be more that we can do, and I can assure you that this board will be part of looking at what those options are. So thank you very much.
You're most welcome. Thank you. We've got a few things we'll just pass down. We've got a little brochure about Success by Six, and then we sponsor the Family First newspaper along with a number of other agencies and school districts. So I don't think we have enough for everybody, but maybe at least for the board members.
Thank you very much. Fred.
The meeting last month, we heard from the Resource Network on some poverty issues and homelessness and maybe some transportation needs. And one of the things that I recall hearing from the board is we should do something or consider doing something more. Then I had the opportunity to participate in the Success by Six meeting in January, as I previously mentioned. And Dr. Babbitt and Ron Kiesler are on that same government committee. Mike O'Keefe from the county is as well, and I'm not going to remember the other individuals' names, but there were a couple of other partners. And we did a breakout session and talked a little bit about, well, what is the role of government? And as Pat had highlighted, we should maybe talk a little bit about what does the county already do. And we do support our homeless shelters. We don't put dollars towards food shelf at this point in the Health and Human Services budget. We do support programs for early education or early intervention through some contracts. But in my opinion, having listened to both presentations, this is a umbrella, if you will, Success by Six, that could be used for Health and Human Services funding, a portion of our funding, to start to look at what is pulling some of these different programs that we put together for prevention or early intervention or, again, homelessness or food security. Those are things that we could do. And the board's role, as we talked about at the Success by Six executive meeting, the action team breakout, was really around the board's role here is recommending policies and program priorities, identifying unmet service needs, and preparing short and long-term goals. So as I look at what we do in some areas of the Health and Human Services budget, I see these things fitting nicely under an umbrella of Success by Six. Again, not that we can necessarily address every need on the slide, but we are doing something and we can continue to do that and potentially over the years maybe do more. Again, knowing our role as that government partner. So I throw that out as an option for the board to consider, and I don't know if you're interested in a formal motion to support that at this point, if you want more time, if you want to consider a resolution to the County Board of Supervisors, because again, this fits directly under one of the service priorities, equal amongst the six, but protecting at-risk populations. And so the commitment I made to John and to Mary Sue is I'd bring, with obviously Dr. Babbitt's and Pat's authorization, that bring this presentation here as a starting point to see if there's discussion that would lead to, again, a more formal way to adopt Success by Six as a potential umbrella for some of the things that we're already doing and pulling these things together and highlight the role that the government in St. Croix County does to help in our way with regard to helping children and their families be successful at an early age. So I would just leave that for the board to consider and potentially discuss. There's certainly overlap, and we
And with public health.
and with public health as well.
Okay.
So there's certainly programs that we already provide that do interventions for and with families and that have young children, but those are programs we administer that are, you know, maybe weren't necessarily represented in the slide, but another avenue of how the county does support programming for young children and their families.
Other commentary or questions at this point? Fred, I think I would just underline that I think either, whether we do it formally as a county or not, Success by Six really can be, I like the umbrella idea, it can be a way for us to coordinate programming, both that the county currently supports and that we directly supports, and those that we perhaps don't directly support financially, but to bring them together. One of the things I think those of us in the service delivery field have found frustrating over the years is that there's a great deal happening out there in the community, but we're not necessarily talking to each other very well. And the extent to which the county can be helpful in various ways in making the process a bit more cohesive, that would certainly be a very important step I think we could take. So I appreciate the presenters being here tonight, and hearing your support, Fred and Pat, is terrific, because I think even if you look at this from a strictly monetary point of view, I think this is an obviously critical investment and should save potentially a significant amount of investment down the road, which will be more expensive. So I think this is definitely worth pursuing. So thank you, Fred.
We can certainly, as the county comes together on some of the strategic planning priority areas and how health and human services fits within that county umbrella, if you will, not to overuse that word, it's snowing out, not raining, but there's opportunity for us to look at planning within our department that may be able to highlight some of the Success by Six work that we currently do and maybe could do more of.
Again, John and Mary Sue, thank you very much for your time. Very much appreciated. Okay, we'll move ahead with the agenda. And number 2 is Public Health DHS Chapter 140.07 review. And Deb, I think you're going to spearhead that discussion with Fred and our guest.
Yes, and I think Tim Ringhan from the state will also be joining Deb at the podium.
Welcome, sir. Thank you for coming.
This is Tim Ringhan and he's the director of the Public Health Regional Office. And everyone knows Sharon, hopefully. So I'll let Tim talk about what the 140 review involves.
Well, good evening. Thank you, Chairman of the board and board members for having me here this evening. I'm Tim Ringhan, work with the Division of Public Health. I'm here representing the Department of Health Services Division of Public Health tonight, and Karen McCune, our Division Administrator, as we work through the process of the DHS 140 review. And it's great to have followed such a great presentation because it certainly aligns really closely with what we see and observe during our review process of the health department and that work that they do as well. The administrative rule DHS 140 comes off of based off the statute, Wisconsin Statute 251, and in that statute, it requires the Department of Health Services to review the operations of local health departments every 5 years to make sure that all health departments are providing a basic level of services for their constituents. In this process, we've been doing the reviews from the Division of Public Health for the last, since 1999. This is the 4th cycle of these reviews that we've completed. During this process, what we do is look at the statutes that are specific to public health, identify evidence that's required of local health departments, and then ask to review that evidence to show that they're providing that basic level of services, not a super high quality level of services. We're always aware that there's a lot of variety in funding around the state, so we're really just looking to make sure that folks are providing that basic level of services required in statute. Now, that's not true in all counties. Some counties certainly do more than just that basic level of services. The statutes also allow for that. In this process, there's a level 1, or that basic level of services are provided. And then there's a level 2 and level 3 health department. Level 2 health departments have to provide services that are based on the state's community health improvement plan. As St. Croix County has a community health improvement plan here to help local constituents, there's a state plan called Healthiest Wisconsin 2020 that we follow as well and encourage health departments to support. Local health departments that do a level 2 have to provide at least 7 additional services to meet that a requirement to be a level 2. And that's the level of services that we've reviewed St. Croix County at for the last 3 of these series. For this series, and this 4th review process, and this year, we reviewed St. Croix County at level 3 level services. That's 14 additional programs that meet at least 7 of the requirements that are identified in Healthiest Wisconsin 2020. Because the process that we developed this year, although it follows many of the same methods that we've used for the last 4 cycles, it also included some of those elements of volunteer or the voluntary public health accreditation that is available now for local health departments. Here in St. Croix County, you have an accredited health department. One of the 6, I believe, that are currently in the state, and more are coming here. But because of that, we were able to review a few less documents for them than we did for some of the other health departments that weren't reviewed. But we won't go over all 50 of the documents that they provided to us. But let me tell you, that's many fewer than the 90 that I had to go through for Eau Claire. So at least a little bit of benefit from having that accreditation process was given to health departments through this process as well. In this, as we go through our review, we look at the essential services, what public health departments are supposed to provide, and how those statutes that they have to provide are, how they provide those services according to those essential services. And we also, in this process, identify those highlights, some of those really special things in health departments that we identify as we move through as well. In St. Croix's situation, when we reviewed the health department here, it was really interesting to see the level of cooperation and collaboration that goes on with the community. Even in the discussion previously, the talk of on the umbrella, the coalition, bringing people together, can be obviously seen in the work of the St. Croix County Health Department. From the Pierce St. Croix County Care, both the St. Croix, Pierce and St. Croix County coming together for their CARES Coalition, that process, the St. Croix County Food Resource Collaborative, the work with the Immunization Coalition, their work with the Substance Abuse Prevention Council, all were definite evidence of St. Croix County Health Department's really strong connection with local health departments. The other piece that is required for a level 3 health department then is that the environmental services be provided through the health department, both the restaurant inspections and the lodging inspections that are required. And St. Croix County was also providing those at a very high level. We check not only with my division in public health, but we look at all the programs from immunization to environmental health to help us review the programs. And their input, again, was that St. Croix County is providing these services at a very high level. Not real surprising when we've got a great accredited health department, but the accreditation is different than meeting statute. And I can, from this process, certainly affirm that St. Croix County Health Department is meeting all the statutes that are required and are providing those 14 extra services. Besides those highlights of that, that's one of the things we look at is what St. Croix County Health Department is doing. We also review the actions of the board. One of the other highlights that I would like to mention on our process that we identified was the St. Croix County Board and their ability to and willingness to become involved with health issues. Both from, we identified both e-cigarette and Frex and mining issues were provided us as evidence in our 140 review process. I can tell you from our reviews that not all health boards take on those types of issues and make statements about that. So I was really, we're pleased to see that kind of work because in Wisconsin, boards of health, this are really what drives the work of health departments and local communities. So that kind of working together with the health department and the board is really that high level of activity and function that we like to be seeing in our health departments. for all those reasons, and because of all that evidence that they provided, we made a recommendation to our division administrator that St. Croix County receive that designation of a level 3 health department. That comes with a little bit more money, not a lot. There's a few, about $3,000 on average, depending on the amount of grant money you get from the state in that formula. But it is, again, some acknowledgement of that extra work that's being done, and also provides St. Croix County with that ability to identify themselves as a level 3 health department in our state. So because of that, I'm very proud and honored to present Deb and Sharon both this plaque, and actually to the board and Fred and all the support. Thank you very much, and we designate you a level 3 health department in the state of Wisconsin.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. I'll just keep it brief. I just want to thank the board for your support. 2 members, Dave of the county board and Deb Rasmussen attended our site visit, and that was much appreciated. And Fred also attended and was very helpful. This was an effort, and it takes an effort to collect all this evidence and to prepare these documents and to go through the process, and it's a lot of work. So Sharon and I, we did a lot of the foundation, and then we just had all the staff helped us with writing up summaries of programs and helped us put all that together. And they also were very involved in the site visits. So thanks to all the public health staff. I know they're not here, but they really are a wonderful, wonderful staff, and they make my job and Sharon's job easier. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your being here, Tim. Thank you for that time. And I think it's fair to say we're all quite proud of the Public Health Department here in St. Croix, and are happy to do whatever we can to be supportive. It's a very clear, very bright spot in the county. So thank you, Deb, and all of your colleagues for terrific work. Okay, we'll move ahead to financial reports. So, Brianna?
Yes, good evening,
Thank you.
everybody. I will make this fast for you. Yes, on the very first page, on the revenue side, just kind of a few points that I want to mention that we've talked about it previously. You'll see that the Health and Human Services revenues are running under budget by $1,300,000. It's because we needed to make the adjustment of $637,000. That was because of the CLTS revenues and expenses were overstated. So just a reminder that that's what's causing that. And then as you see, the same thing would be on the expenses. We just don't have that expense as well. So they netted 0, but it looks like we're not meeting our goal as far as the revenues. And if we can scroll down to page 42. 41 just gives you a historical data, what we reported in Q1, Q2, and on page 42, you'll see Q3 and Q4. I split those into 2 pages simply because it got too small if you want to see them all in one. So I want to bring your attention to Q4. Been waiting anxiously for that. You'll notice that in Q3, I reported for DHS, first of all, that we'll be in a favorable 352, and now you see in Q4 at 277. That is a little under, but I also want to mention that we've lost that WIMCR money, which was about $208,000. However, some of the money was made up by additional funding we've received, and one of them is from Great Rivers Consortium. We did pretty well there on the federal match. We also anticipating another $17,000, and that is for our economic support manager's time that's contributed towards the Great Rivers Consortium. And I'm also anticipating a December finer claim, and that's about $15,000. In addition to that, we are also anticipated an additional $75,000 from the Great Rivers Consortium for the PPACA funding. And that is because a lot of the counties in the consortium, the 10 counties, did not meet their MOE, which is maintenance of effort, which is the levy. So what's been left, which is the surplus, will be distributed towards the counties that went above their levy. So that resulted for additional money for us, about approximately $75,000. So that brings up to the net revenue for DHS. Well, I also want to talk about expenses. On the expense side, for DHS, we had PTO payouts. In Q3, I did not estimate enough simply because the PTO payout, it's hard to determine who's going to cash in their PTOs at the end of the year. So that brought us, that PTO and wellness was about $93,000 that we under budgeted. And the operating costs were about $30,000. For Croix Industries, I've been reporting a loss for some time, and there is a little difference between Q3 and Q4. Some of that is due to, in Q3, I projected the unemployment to be a little bit higher. I based that on July-September actuals, but in October through December, it was running an average of $2,000. It was running really towards the end. In July-September, we were running about $7,600 a month. And also I want to point out that we had a surplus in 2013 in a dollar amount of $332,000. And there's 260 as well. $332,260. With our loss of $237,723 gives us a favorable net of $94,537. So although here it shows that we are at a loss, but we did have that surplus money. So that brought us to a favorable amount. Any questions on that? Nope. All right. We'll go into aging. Aging, we've had a little jump from 68 in Q3 to 94. In aging, we picked up some additional money in state allocations. I've mentioned that in previous meetings. We had some increases on the state contracts. We also picked up an additional benefit specialist federal money of $28,000. And we also had less expensive in catered food and raw food. In Q3, I continue on projecting that to be a little bit higher because of the December, the year end, we were anticipating to spend a lot more. That didn't, it went a little bit under, which is good. On the ADRC, it went from 36 to 22. I'm sorry, from 36,000 to 2,200. We picked up additional dementia and regular ADRC federal match, which was good. On the expense side, we had additional payouts that were about $14,000 that were over the budget, and wellness program, which was another 28, and in operations about 19. So that leaves us with 2,297 net. For nursing home, you'll see it's favorable at 146,000 and compared to 82,000 in Q3. We picked up additional funding from our pay sources, which Sandy will talk about more in detail. And what's interesting is that we came in at 146,000. I anticipate that we'll have approximately 19,000 in write-offs, which it's not included in that number. But if we take that out, and our depreciation last year was about 127,000, so that breaks us even. So there is no, I'm not anticipating a big loss. Any questions for me? Yes, ma'am.
One quick question.
Yes.
So if I understand correctly, we're looking at, on one page, the projections, looking back at the projections from third quarter, the projections from fourth quarter. Why does the budget number change?
The
So I think
budget,
I'm-
yeah, the budget
yeah.
number changed because we had in period 12, there was an adjustment made to the salaries and fringes. We had some positions added. I'm trying to remember.
So rather than reflect that in the projections, we're actually adjusting the budget. So the budget doesn't stay consistent throughout the year in reports.
We had adjustments to the budget, yeah, since the beginning of the year.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Speak up. Nope. Thank you very much. I'm here to answer any questions you may have later, if you think of any.
Thank you, Beata. Appreciate that. Okay, we'll move ahead then to item number 4, Wisconsin Medicaid Cost Reporting Update.
I can give a brief overview of the information I know to date. As you recall, last month and obviously this month, Beata highlighted that our allocation for, or expected allocation for WMCR is down about $208,000 from what we budgeted, which I think was $450,000. After the meeting, I got in touch with Bill Hanna. Bill is in charge of the regional offices in the state of Wisconsin. And in a nutshell, Bill said that there was one rather large county, he didn't name the county, but he said a large county, that basically filed a claim for 2012 and 2013. So they doubled up. So the available funds for the balance of the counties across the state of Wisconsin was reduced. So the cap for reimbursements to counties under the WMCR formula is $19.25 million. There's really a two-step formula to allocating those costs to county. One is your 2002 cap of your deficit on MA programs that are eligible for WMCR. And then whatever's left over in the balance of the state is distributed on a percentage basis. So that second part, because of a double claim of one county, is what is, from Bill's perspective, the culprit. The cap being, our dollars being capped at 2002 levels is a whole nother issue that we probably need to spend a little bit more time doing some research on. And so in a follow-up to Bill, I've asked that, before I go there, the other issue that Beata did raise is there were some changes in the tool. And I think, Ron, you had highlighted that Pierce County saw some adjustments as well based on your knowledge of that program. And the state is going to relook at the tool, but they're not going to reallocate more dollars. The $19.25 million is the cap, but there may be a redistribution. So if we're able to reclaim our administrative overhead dollars based on our old formula versus the way the change in the claiming was done, St. Croix County could see an increase or potentially a decrease. We don't know that detail yet. So we need to do a little bit more research. And the consideration for this board, in my opinion, is we need some time, and I've asked Bill to connect with Beata so we're crystal clear on what our 2002 cap is in St. Croix County, that we can go back and look at the allocations that we've received over the years and look at what we've claimed versus what we've received back. So if there was no cap in 2002, what would be the dollars that the state kept from the federal dollars that came in based on county losses? So we need to do that analysis. Bill has assured me that he'll connect Beata up with an individual at the state that will be able to assist in garnering that detail. And after we do that analysis, I think we should bring it back to the board and give you that detail to say, WMCR is either good for St. Croix County or it's bad for St. Croix County, because we need to do that full analysis before we understand or take action to say automatically WMCR has cost St. Croix County dollars. My hunch is it has cost us dollars that were capped at a 2002 level, but I would like Beata to be able to look at that detail with one of the state folks and see what happens with the reallocation of dollars. What I did tell Bill as well is how can we as counties know whether or not a county this cycle did not do a claim, and hence our projection for 2015 budgeted at $450,000, how is that going to be impacted? So there's that analysis to do as well. And the state is looking to see if counties, we'll be able to ask that question, have all counties filed, so there's not going to be the double up. We'll be able to get that detail, but we'll also be able to get the detail on what have we really, it may not be to the penny, but what have we lost in St. Croix, my assumption is what have we lost in St. Croix County based on a cap that has been placed at 2002 levels. So there's more work for us to do here, but we wanted to give you an update that we didn't ignore the $208,000 adjustment, and I don't think other counties have as well. So that's my report on WMCR, and when we have more detail, it may be my intent to then bring it back to the board for a review and potential consideration of a resolution to the state.
Fred, thank you for that. Supervisor Novotny.
So if I'm getting this right, there was a county that didn't file, waited a year, and filed 2 years claims. But it came out of the same pot, the same amount.
Yeah, it's an annual cap is my understanding. So the previous year, St. Croix County and other counties would have got more dollars.
Because they didn't, the other
because
county
they didn't file. But because it's a calendar year, the 19.25 cap is in effect. So we saw an adjustment in part because of that. And there would be no way for us to predict that.
Right.
But we're going to ask now, because we know that a county actually was able to make up a year and claim. The state's going to look at changes to the Department of Health Services contract that would require counties to file, but that change hasn't been made in the 2015
That would make
contract.
sense to me. If you don't file, you lose it.
That would make sense to me as well, and I think that would be the intent of the department from the brief conversation that I had with Bill. But again, that would be contractual language that likely would be addressed in 2016.
Any other questions from? I'm sorry, Supervisor Kiesler, go ahead.
I'm not sure that we lost money. You know, I mean, we would have made more money the previous year, and then it was taken back. The difficult thing, of course, is you make projections off of the former year, and so it looks like we came out behind, but we came out ahead the year before. In terms of whether, you know, WMCR is good or bad for the county, that's relative to CSDRB, which was prior to WMCR, or the Wisconsin Medicaid Cost Report is what WMCR stands for. CSDRB is a Community Services Deficit Reduction Benefit, which is what it was before they went to WMCR. So the WMCR, what that did was, like Fred said, place the cap. Well, clearly the county has grown. We've provided additional services well beyond our 2002 level. And so we are definitely behind relative to that CSDRB method, but all counties are behind. I mean, the bottom line is they cap the counties, and then any surplus beyond that that was claimed to the federal government, the state kept. That was supposed to be sunsetted several different times, and it never was sunsetted, primarily because once the state gets a taste for revenue, they like to keep that in their palate. So that's why, you know, they would have to come up with a way to cover that hole that they would realize if they decided to lift the WIMCR methodology and go back to the CSDRB methodology. But it is thanks for doing that research and finding that out. It does make sense because, like you said, there is a double methodology. One is one that we can count on, which is the services that we provide relative to 2002 and meeting that cap. The other, of course, is the, pool of money that's distributed if people don't meet that cap, and that's where we came up short. So it sounds reasonable, it sounds plausible. Whether or not we're going to get any additional information out of them, it'd be nice if they would put a deadline on when folks could claim so that in the future we would not have these types of problems. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Kiesler. I just wanted to say that I had the opportunity to meet one-to-one with Fred a little bit ago, and he schooled me a little bit on WIMCR, which I very much appreciated because it's a very complex system, the way this funding works, involving federal dollars as well as state decision-making about those federal dollars and how they get distributed, and some of this information is can get quite confusing. So I would encourage other members of the board who would like to learn a little bit more about WIMCR to either talk with Supervisor Kiesler, who obviously has in-depth knowledge on that issue, or Fred as well, to learn a little bit more about that. But I appreciate what you're doing, Fred. I agree with Supervisor Kiesler. There's some questions here it would be nice to get answered.
We'll work to quantify that dollar amount that may be a variance. Again, that St. Croix County didn't receive in terms of being capped at 2002 levels. We'll try to do additional research on impact for the 2015 budget, and we'll report back when we have that detail.
Fred, will that include some questions about why we're still talking about 2002 levels in 2015?
What might be helpful, and I don't know whether it's, I didn't put it in the board packet, but I went into Google and just typed in WIMCR, and up popped a white paper from WICSA, Wisconsin County Human Services Association, and I have that white paper that might be able to give that background on why we're capped at 2002 levels, but it in essence is what Supervisor Kiesler indicated, that there was dollars that the counties agreed to work with the state, and once those dollars were transferred from CSDRB program to WIMCR, the transition of those dollars back to the county never occurred. And this white paper, I think, is still accurate today, so I can just email that to the board if you would like. That'll give you background. We'll still do the research.
I know I'd appreciate that, Fred. My guess is that other members of the board would as well. So if you could do that, it would be much appreciated. Thank you. Other questions or comments about WIMCR at this point? Supervisor Kiesler.
I guess just one more comment, and that's simply that I think we need to work with the Wisconsin Counties Association to try and lift that 2002 cap. And I think the counties have attempted that over the last 13 years and have failed. But I would suggest that we continue to work with the Wisconsin Counties Association to address that issue with the state, because it is federal dollars that are claimed above the max fee from the federal government, hence the deficit. Our services cost X amount of dollars with direct service and overhead, and the Medicaid max fee is X amount of dollars. The difference between that, we can claim 60% to the feds. So we should be getting that money because the state doesn't match the 40%. I mean, we're a county, we're a state mandated county run state versus like Illinois, where the county employees would technically be state employees, and the state would have that 40% match already built in because it would be state dollars. Here in Wisconsin, the state dollars that the state would normally put in are passed on to the county in the form of what we have to make up for levy. So the feds, no matter what state you're in the 50-state union, you're only going to get that 60% amount, In Wisconsin, however, that 40%, which in other states comes through state revenue and is state funds, that gets passed on to the county and hits the county levy as a match requirement. They used to call it the state share, and now they don't. They call it the non-federal match because they don't want to continue to highlight that in Wisconsin they're not doing, the state isn't doing their share in picking up that cost as they do in other states in the union. So my point, though, being I think we continually need to push the Wisconsin Counties Association to advocate to try and lift that cap that the state of Wisconsin put on the Medicaid deficit dollar back in 2002.
And just for the board's information, I did place a call to Sarah Dietrich Kasdorf specifically on Wimker, and I haven't had a chance to hear back from her yet. And if I don't, in the next couple of days, I'm anticipating that I will see Sarah at the WCA budget briefings, the one in Menominee, so I'll get a chance to talk to her face-to-face to see if other counties are, again, raising the Wimker question as Ron had indicated, and I agree, we should raise that question.
Thank you very much, Fred. Appreciate that information. We'll move ahead to item number 5, Health Center Ad Hoc Committee update.
We have a few items to update today, and I think Sandy's going to walk through some of the changes that will be on the screen that have been made and run through the ad hoc committee. And we have maybe 4 or 5 bullet points to address, but Sandy, I'll let you cover those details if you would.
At the ad hoc committee in January, we talked about some changes to our plan, which we included in the packet. The dementia crisis unit used to be off to the top. This area, here, if you just give
We
me
should
the
have a
mouse for
pointer,
second.
huh?
I'll use a mouse.
Yeah.
This section right here is a dementia crisis unit, and it actually was up here attached to what is the current kitchen area. We moved it down here, and now it's attached to the current ramp area where my office is. And what happened is this whole area in here, we removed over 1,000 feet from the facility because we removed all of the administrative office buildings or office spaces because we kept the ramp area. And we're keeping our office areas in here, which was a reduction in the project cost, which saved quite a bit. So that's the basic huge changes. The next one shows the upper curve. This is where we took all the area out of the office buildings. Now here's therapy, our therapy department. This is going to be, I know there's some interest in this. This will be, we talked today at our stakeholder meeting to have this mocked up so that we can see what the pool would look like attached to the facility. This is the, this room was also reduced. It was over 2,000 square feet. And we took 500 feet off of the big activity room because we felt it was a great big large space that we didn't need that much space in that area. Today, we reviewed the current space program, which is still, it's still a work in progress, but every day we make progress in it. The interior finishes, we looked at interior finishes, carpets, different tiles, basically learning the difference between rubber, linoleum, different carpet types, which is extremely interesting. Different carpets they have, different wall finishes we looked at. And beginning next week, Wednesday, they're going to start building a mock room. So they're going to take this the health center room, which is one of these rooms here, and they're going to actually build it in our basement so that the staff and all of you can come look at this room. I mean, it might be cardboard and there might be a tape that says it's an outlet, but it'll be mocked up just like a resident room will be, so that we can see what we think will work, what we think won't work. Maybe this outlet needs to move. Maybe this doesn't seem to work right, so that we can really look at what the room is going to look like and make changes to that. So that will be starting next Wednesday. They hope to be finished next week with that mock-up, and I will let you know when the mock-up room is completed so you can come and look at it. This is the dementia crisis unit. One of the things I did ask them today, because I was a little concerned about the sight lines getting a little bit behind the spa area here with these rooms here, I asked them to move these rooms out. So expand it so it doesn't go past the kitchen area. So it really gives us always good sight lines into the residence rooms or at the resident room area. So this would be the crisis dementia unit area. They had, if you count, there's nine. There's only 9 because they wanted a garden. And what has changed in the plans is this area here is actually a room. This has been created into a sunroom area, and then we've put a fenced garden out here for them to be able to utilize the outside spaces. Another, this is a current health center, and one of the discussions was sometimes when you're looking at renovation of a large building, there comes a point where you need to look at, is building new more cost effective than renovating? And we brought that to the ad hoc committee at the last ad hoc. And unfortunately, with the 20 million, building new would give us a 20-bed CBRF at 12,000 square feet, then taking this current building, which is 68,000 square feet down. And the ad hoc committee really was adamant about, nope, we want to renovate this building. So that's the decision. The final decision is we are moving forward on renovating this building. Another couple of things that was brought up with the renovation of the current health center is it appeared that some of the rooms appeared small. So we have created 4 on each floor, 1-bedroom units. They're here that has like a bedroom area and a kitchen area. If you move down on the plans, it shows the difference. This is the typical 1 room, and this is the more 1-bedroom type of area. So there's going to be 8 of them in the facility now, spread throughout. It won't be just 1 wing. They'll be spread throughout the current health center, 4 on each floor. Now, one of the challenges we had was developing an entrance into the health center that didn't involve a ramp. So Horty Elvig came up with the back of the building, developing a circle driveway and creating a vestibule here. And this actually, if for those of you that are familiar with the health center, this is actually a housekeeping storage area. Going through this area and then going up the elevator. So the access is actually in the basement. And refinishing the front of the building with some lighter siding and creating a facade. So this would be the entrance in the back of the health center. For those of you that are familiar, right over here is the current employee entrance. I hope that gives you some reference points for you. Do you have any questions about the design and some of the updates? Okay. The next ad hoc committee is on February 24th, and a few of the things that we'll be needing to talk about in the schedule is some of our assumptions that we need to give to Larry in our examined forecast to in regards to our health insurance. Do we want it's an estimation, and Fred, for the life of me, I can't remember the 3 levels.
One was
Probable, yes. Yes. So there were 3 levels, and one was, it's kind of like hopeful, anticipated, and probable. And they vary between, was it like 2% and 11%? So it's one of the things, it's a estimate on how our health insurance will be going up in the next 5 years, which we need to give to Larry to help do our exam and forecast. So that's one of the things we'll be talking with the ad hoc committee about. And some of the other assumptions is just knowing that with going on pay for performance, there's a change in that. It's about 2.5% on the grid each year. So that's a change in the current assumptions that we have is 2% was the raise that we put in the current forecast. So we're working with Larry on that. We're also working with updating the marketing study to assure that we're solid there. And we should have the information, hopefully, most of it ready for the committee of the whole on the 31st. We are, with talking with the construction committee today, we are a little concerned about some of our figures, if they're going to be able to get some of the costs solid in, firmed in by then for Larry to get his report done. Did I miss anything?
I don't think so. That was very good. Shayla, was there anything that you had as an ad hoc member in a meeting today that you wanted to add?
Sandy, thank you. Just from the chair's perspective, appreciate all the effort and time that's going into being a part of the ad hoc committee. I know everybody on that committee is working hard and putting in an awful lot of time, and appreciate the focus on cost savings as well. Obviously, whatever we need to do within reason to be sure we keep our budget more or less where we have projected it to be is always appreciated. So thank you to the ad hoc committee very much and for your presentation. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda, review and discussion on industrial wind turbines. And Fred, you provided us a nice summary in the packet. Thank you for that.
Well, I won't take credit for it. The health department, Ed Thurman, our environmental health specialist, and Deb Lindeman, our health officer, worked on that timeline just as a point of reference for the board. And so I'm going to turn it over to them to maybe highlight some of the items that are in that timeline. But maybe we'll start there.
Okay, this is Ed Thurman, our environmental health specialist, and I'll show you in just a second, but he kind of put together this timeline, but you can see on the timeline that this issue, with the wind turbines coming to Forest, actually came before the Health and Human Services Board back in 2012. So there is lots and lots of information and lots of studies and lots we could tell you if we could remember it all, but we have just kind of put some of the highlights here in this timeline, so Ed's going to go over that briefly. Push that, yeah.
Okay. The first thing I want to point out is back in March of 2012, it was brought up to the Health and Human Services Board. Forest Voice was there, and we made recommendations to the Public Service Commission and put together a letter. Fred put together a letter, and in that letter, I think there was 4 points. And do you remember what those 4 points were, Debbie? Do we need to go over that?
Well, it was just basically that the letter asking them to do a non-biased health study on the wind farm projects. They wanted, we recommended that a project footprint kind of assist the town of Forest to see, to monitor the health status of the people that live there before and then after wind turbines if they came in. And then I think that action also by the board included a letter of support to Brown County because they were dealing with some wind farm issues at the same time, and their Board of Health was looking at the issue too, so.
Okay. And then the next thing that came up is the July meeting of that year. We got a letter from Kitty Rhodes, and she basically said there's going to be no more studies done. The state will not fund any more studies, and that's what this Board of Health wanted mostly from the Public Service Commission. And then later on that year, in August, residents have voiced concern again, and HHS board said basically we're not the governing body on this, and it encouraged emerging energies and the town of Forest to
have those discussions,
to keep an open line of discussion going. And then an important date is in March of 13, the Public Service Commission originally denied the application to put in the wind farm. The emerging energies redid their models, redid their sound models, and then in October of that year, they approved the wind farm to go into the town of Forest. And then we go up to October of 14, and that is when Brown County Board of Health passed a motion declaring that industrial wind turbines are a human health hazard.
Well, they didn't say all. They said the Shirley industrial wind turbines that are located in Brown County at Glenmore is the township, that they declared those specifically a human health hazard.
Yeah, thanks for the correction there. Yeah. And then in October 31st of 14 is when the Wind Siting Council came up with their final report on wind turbines. And that was referenced by Brenda earlier in the meeting. She said there was some of it quoted in the packet, and she wanted to be put in the opposing view. And then also in this timeline, I cited a few of the good studies that I thought were pertinent. There's way too much for one person to read and understand. There's a lot of information out there on this. I've been reading a lot about it recently, and I'm learning too much, I guess. But right at the very bottom, I think where we're at now is the town of Forest filed a petition for judicial review, and that's where we are right now. So, thank you.
Basically, you know, we've been in touch with people at the state, and basically, their thought is that right now there's not conclusive evidence or research that says that if the wind turbines are following the setback regulations, which is 1,250 feet, that there's no clear evidence that they cause health effects if they're at that setback level. So that's what kind of the state's position, the Bureau of Environmental Health at the state, that's kind of their position, and the Wind Siting Council, that's their position also on the issue. So that's where things are at. Brown County, though, did pass a resolution or pass a motion that the Shirley wind farms are a human health hazard based on, I just received a packet of information or a disc of information from Brown County Public Health, and within that are tons of reports. I received it just yesterday, so I haven't reviewed the whole thing, but within that are a couple of acoustic sound, infrasound studies that they based their action on. There was a lot of anecdotal kind of testimonial letters that they based their decision on from people that live near the wind farms at the Shirley wind farms. And basically that's, and right now that their action is being, I kind of dealt with the attorneys for the Shirley Wind Farms. I think there's some counteraction involved, so that's where that's at.
Maybe a couple of quick questions, Deb, and not just from me, by all means. Do we know what effect, practically speaking, Brown County's declaration about the Shirley Wind Farms actually had once they made that declaration? I mean, did anything stop happening, or did the wind farms stop spinning at that point? I mean, it was the county's declaration that, based on their knowledge, they believed they were a health hazard, clearly.
Right.
But in terms of direct effect on what's happening at Shirley,
In terms of enforcement, I don't think there's been
they don't
any
have,
enforcement.
yeah,
no.
I mean, they don't really have the ability at this stage of the game to enforce something like that, do they?
I think with the countermeasure with the attorneys for the company, I don't think that, I don't think there's been any stoppage or any change in the activity that I'm aware of.
But there is litigation of some kind underway.
Right.
At the moment, relating to that. Yeah, Fred, go ahead.
Dr. Babbitt, I thought maybe some folks from the town of Forest might know the answer to that definitively. I
haven't heard that there's any.
Yeah, I don't think there's any change.
Nothing that stopped, no.
Okay, so same answer as Deb saying, nothing that is certain.
Could I comment at all?
Yes, you certainly could.
I can tell you that it is up to the.
I'm sorry, we have to have you microphoned. I'm sorry. So if you don't mind stepping to the podium, you certainly should feel free to chime in here.
I do know that the town of Glenmore itself, their supervisors could insist that Duke shut down. There seems to be a real push and pull there. As in what's happening with these communities, as is happening in Forest, you got those that want them, they want that money in their pocket. You've got those who don't. We know what's going to happen. So there's a real push and pull going on. Based on proceedings with the Highland Wind Farm in the town of Forest, the Shirley turbines were documented over 50 dBA. They were actually clocked at 60 dBA. So if the town of Glenmore wanted to insist that those turbines shut down, they could do it. Don't ask me why they haven't. I'll tell you the town of Forest would have been right on it. So that's one thing. One thing I'd also like to say is the judicial review was actually 1/10 of 2014. So we're on a year on this judicial review.
And nothing to report at this point as a result of that?
Judge Black has not made a decision.
That process, right. Okay, that's right. Okay, thank you.
So if there's any other questions, we've been living this for over four and a half years.
I did actually have a second question, and again, I apologize for dominating the microphone at the moment, but tell us what the status is of the project in Forest. Where do things stand as of right now?
Well, Judge Vlack could make one of two decisions. He could side with the Public Service Commission. If he cannot find a point of law that they have violated, perhaps he will have to rule that they can go ahead. And I can get into all sorts of reasons why he shouldn't, because clearly the PSC is not following PSC 128 with this particular project. Or he can side with the town of Forest. It's our local government that filed for petition for judicial review. One comment Judge Vlack made during the October 23rd hearing, was it, 21st hearing, was he says, whatever I decide, I know there's going to be an appeal. But his comment was during that public hearing, if it takes him 6 months to make a decision, it'll take 6 months. He wants to be able to sleep at night when he's done.
Thank you.
Yes.
Other questions from board members about the issue? Would you like to stand up, John?
of course, this is a big issue, especially for folks that are going to get impacted. And I know we're far away on the eastern edge of the province. The Brown County group conducted their own study. They also dealt with the residents who had health impacts. So I guess one of the expectations might be that if you were going to come along and look at that you would look at the data, if this was any other kind of a health issue, you would look at the data that was collected, and then you would talk to the victims that were impacted. So if we were going to try to make a resolution or do something from here, one would think those would be, basic items that we might do. The PSC 128, which is kind of the governing statute for wind siting and wind turbine operation, has a lot of loopholes that were engineered into the document. And to change it probably requires the legislature to insist that the changes be made. I would ask all of the members who can to look at the 16-page document that is the Wind Siting Council Minority Response. I think you're going to find that that document is extraordinarily well articulated. It documents many of the biases that are built into the current Wind Siting Council. It exposes a bunch of the problems with PSC 128 and shows how valuable data has actually been discarded. It's a powerfully written thing, and to have a minority portion of a group like a Wind Siting Council go to the work of putting this together and then insisting that it be a part of the report that was turned over, I believe, to the state legislature is actually kind of an incredible thing. I don't think I've seen a minority group in a board or group like that attempt that level and that much criticism of what they're operating with. So I hope that we're going to be able to actually look at some of the real stuff. Thank you all.
Thank you, John. Fred, am I correct that we had a copy of that minority report in the previous board packet?
I think in the previous board packet, you had the October report from the Wind Siting Council, not a minority report. And that's nothing that...
It's within that.
Oh, it is within that
That's
document?
what I wondered about.
It is
Okay.
Appendix F.
Okay. Because I know we had Brown County's extensive report, which was a pretty astounding document in itself. But as long as the minority report is there, good, then we have access to take a look at that. Commentary from other members of the board at this point. The chair would just perhaps make 2 points. One is that my feeling is that as the HHS board, we do at some point need to make a statement about wind turbines in forest. I'm not prepared at this point to say what sort of statement we need to make. That will come from the board as a whole, but it's the chair's thinking that we should at some point go on record with at least an opinion about the issue. Having said that, and again, this is only the chair's opinion, I'm a little reluctant to do that while the case is before Judge Vlack. I don't know that the two things necessarily have to be linked at all, but I'm a little bit concerned about doing that while Judge Vlack is still in the process of reviewing the situation. So I'm not quite sure where that leaves us, but the chair did want to make those points. And again, open for other comments about the issue before we move ahead. And hearing none at this point, we'll move ahead to next item on the agenda.
May I ask just a
yes, sorry,
clarifying
Fred.
question?
By all means.
I tend to agree that at some point this issue has been brought to the Health and Human Service Board on a couple of occasions with maybe 2 previous boards and now in front of this board. I don't know that it has ever been brought to the full county board as far as a resolution. It has not. But the board previously took action, and Ed and Deb highlighted the 4-point letter that was sent back in October of 2012. We followed up most recently with information back from the Department of Health that I think to a certain degree mimicked the response we got in 2012 related to there's no more studies that are going to be done through the Department of Health Services, and which has been reported here. And in my Wind Siting Council document, I don't have the minority reports. I think it's important that we as a health department take a look at that. But in that Wind Siting Council report, one of the things that I noted, and that's why only the executive summary, you've had the full report previously, but the executive summary, you know, has a summary of key findings from wind health literature. And in those bullet points, it does identify individuals report increased stress due to wind turbine operation. Stress and sleep disturbance may be related to chronic health conditions. So while there may not be legislative changes that have been a result of that, there was at least some acknowledgement that it does impact people. But it also goes on to say the majority of individuals living near utility scale wind systems do not report stress, sleep deprivation, or chronic adverse health effects attributed to wind turbines. So there's bullet points that say some people are impacted and the majority are not. And for our health department to be able to do an exhaustive research, we would need to come to you with a resolution to do a budget amendment or work with the state to add somebody that has the technical expertise and would have dedicated time to work on this. So it's not that we're uninterested in more literature, it's we would need resources. So what can we learn from the Wind Siting Council, the action from previous boards, maybe the minority report that may be able to help this board take a position, potentially bring it to the County Board of Supervisors to take a position one way or the other, is the direction I would seek so that we can be direct about what we can and can't do as a health department with our current resources, and not necessarily bring it back with a little bit more information here and a little bit more there that really would document potentially research on both sides of the issue. Now, having said all that, we'll do as we're directed by the board, but if you really want us to do more literature review, I think has to come with that a consideration for resources. Very willing to follow the suggestion of the board chair about waiting until a decision is made. That will give us some time to review more literature, and connect with Brown County. I know Deb just got a disc full of information there as well. So maybe I could have said this in a more abbreviated term or abbreviated way, but we are looking for direction as well on what it is we as a health department can do on this particular issue.
Fred, I appreciated the timeline included in the packet as well, and that's part of the impetus I am feeling, at least, for this board not to kick the can down the road, to use the time-worn metaphor. So perhaps the timing of the judicial review continuing does give you a little bit of window of opportunity to review the Brown County materials you just got, and to take a look at the minority report and to provide whatever guidance you can about what the health department can realistically do to assist the board in decision making. So thank you. Next agenda item is a presentation from our esteemed colleague, Board Vice Chair Dave Osnes on Wisconsin Counties Association Health and Human Services Steering Committee. Supervisor Osnes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Fred, I will promise try to keep this under 5 minutes for you as we started. Deb, before you leave as Vice Chair, I thank you again and Sharon and your entire staff for a tremendous job well done. One of the first things that we did before our steering committee, everybody asked me, what do you people have in your water in St. Croix County? And I asked them why, and they said, you guys have got to be heading above most other departments right now in the state. Between the accreditation and now 140, I had no comeback for them at all. But I wanted to pass that on to you from the steering committee as well. They also want to give their congratulations to you and staff.
Supervisor Osnes, if I could interrupt briefly, I think because of the work of the health department, we know the water in St. Croix County is indeed safe to drink.
If it isn't, we're in trouble. Again, I apologize for not being at the last meeting. I think as the chairman stated, I was out of the county. Monday through Wednesday, I was in the Dells on transportation. And on that Tuesday, the Wisconsin County Highway Association, I'm on that board of directors, and the WCA steering committee both met. And one of the items that we took up there at that time had to deal with HHS, and that was transportation funding for our seniors and folks with disabilities. Both groups agreed that sitting since 2010 was way too long, not providing any additional money to this program. Both are very committed to go to the Capitol with a minimum of $434,000 increase. And hopefully it's just a start, but that's where that particular group is going right now, Mr. Chairman. Thursday, I went back down to Stevens Point to sit in on the steering committee on HHS, and yes, I'm finally getting to this. And that was a group of 25 people that got together, and it was rather amazing, the folks that were there, between county supervisors, HHS directors, and forgive me, the young lady from Trempealeau Mental Health Facility was on that committee as well. And we had an extended conversation on school-based mental health initiative. Part of the handout that I've got, and I'm not going to go through it. There was an extensive talk, I think, for over 2 hours on which way we want to go. There's a huge concern on the issues that are going on with kids right now in the younger grade schools, eventually into junior high, senior high, the mental health issues that they have, family issues that they have going on right now. And the concern was, what can the counties do to help us out? How can we work with the school districts? Is there a way to bring more mental health folks to a school district? Is it going to be up to the county to afford to do that? I think the big talk there was, and we had two gentlemen on there, Mr. John Forrester, who is the Director of Government Relations on School Administrators, and Gary Myreth is the Executive Director on the Wisconsin County, or on Wisconsin Council of Administrators of Special Services. They've spent a great deal of time with principals, with the school administrators. They've been down to Madison, talking with legislators. The legislators, they're aware that if we don't catch things at an early age, we're going to have folks sitting in juvenile court, eventually into adult court, and if there was a way to prevent a lot of that from happening before they get to the point where some very serious things happen, they felt that the county association should work with the counties and work with our legislators and see what we can do. The more and more we talked about it, the more and more I thought about you, Mr. Chair, because this, I'm sure, hits home for you especially. there was a unanimous decision by the steering committee to go ahead, work with the legislators, and see if there's any money available that can be kicked back to counties or to the private sector to help bring some folks into the school districts. It's going to take a long time. It's going to take patience. But I think it's an area that I think we need to move on rather than wait on. We need to be more proactive than reactive. The second thing we talked about with the 17-year-old offenders, there's a move from the Lawyers Association asking to partner with the Wisconsin County Association and counties and ask that 17-year-olds be moved back into juvenile court rather than moving them into adult court. That also went back and forth. A lot of supervisors had the question, what additional cost is that going to be to a county if we move all those folks back? The concern on the other side was what effect in the long run to a 17-year-old who goes to adult court and has maybe a minor issue on there, but it stays on his record the rest of his life and may affect future employment and among other things down the road. So a lot of folks are saying, well, that's kind of a horse apiece. You know, what are we going to do? Are we better off leaving them in juvenile court? Are we passing it off by just throwing them up into adult court and saying, you know, you goofed up, now you suffer the rest of your life? That one the group had a lot of mixed feelings on. I think the general concern was there that we decided to go ahead and talk with legislators, talk with judges. Again, I could bring a smile to my face again because Judge Lack in his juvenile court and in the drug court came up and they said here again, St. Croix County is leading the state. Which made me feel pretty good, Mr. Chair. It's got to be in the water. But with that, we decided, yep, we're going to go ahead. Let's go talk to the legislators. Let's see what they've got to say. And we're going to talk about that at our next meeting. We talked a little bit about the budget that was coming up. And I'm not going to go into the budget as it's coming up. For those that are interested and supervisors, you might want to go to the Wisconsin County Association homepage. And if you click on the legislative box in there, you'll be able to get a copy of the Wisconsin County Association State Biannual Budget, their study that they've done. That came out at 9 o'clock on Wednesday morning after the governor smoked the night before. If you want a short version of the budget, you can get a 95-page summary packet. That's also on there. And Mr. Chair, I will take any questions that you may have or comment.
Thank you for that, Supervisor Rasmus, very much. Appreciate the efforts that you are making with WCA, and we're obviously well represented there, which I appreciate. I know you'll recall that before we got the meeting started tonight, I mentioned to you that I was aware that the River Falls School District has reached out through an RFP to private practice agencies in the region to see whether or not they would be willing to partner with the school district to provide mental health services within the schools. It might be a good idea for us at some point, Fred, to ask a representative from that district to come up and talk with us a little bit about what they're doing. Seems to fit very well with obviously what WCA is interested in promoting. And those of us who work in mental health know that schools really have become de facto mental health clinics. They've really had to. They've had little choice, and they are overwhelmed. And the issues that are emerging in schools definitely are appearing in elementary schools and below. It used to be unheard of, at least in my experience, to have a 4 or 5-year-old child referred into a counseling clinic because they'd been kicked out of a daycare or kicked out of a kindergarten class. I remember several years ago hearing a story about a child that I ended up working with briefly who was taken out of a Menominee school in handcuffs at age 8, I believe. That was certainly an eye-opener. So hopefully we can follow up a little bit and hear some more about what WCA is going to do with the Mental Health in the Schools initiative, and perhaps invite someone from River Falls to come up and talk with us at a later meeting. Other comments for Vice Chair Osnes about WCA? Thank you again very much, Dave, for being a part of the meeting tonight and filling us in. So we move now to the final business agenda item, Fred, and this is an update on at the Services Center, perhaps doing some meetings up there and taking a look at the equipment issues.
Yeah, in the board packet, it highlights the background information in the 2015 capital budget. There were dollars that were earmarked for the Services Center to be able to video record and live stream in our large conference room. And wanted to just give a quick status update. We are in the process of getting additional quotes for those services, so we're not just looking at one quote. We're doing a review of different quotes. And one of the challenges, and I think if Colleen's got the slide up on the overhead, on the right-hand side, that's our large training room, and there's a wall that is in between the two rooms, so it can open and be a large room. And in this particular slide, conference room 172 is cut off just a little bit, so it does extend up a bit more. The issue is that's a fairly narrow room, and so trying to look at a way that we can accommodate the screens which are on the walls to the where Colleen has the cursor, and have the board members so they can see the information that would be displayed on the overheads, as well as be able to see audience members, is something that we are going to have to think a little bit about. So we're reviewing quotes, and we'll be moving forward with this project if it is within budget and we can make it work. If we can't find a way to make it workable, we'll report back on other considerations. So that's just wanted to follow up on the board chair. Dr. Babbitt had asked about this and just wanted an update, and so that's what the purpose of this was, is just a brief update.
Thank you, Fred. I was actually in conference room 172 this morning, and indeed you're right. It is rather skinny in the sense of being able to set up a board meeting. There may be a way to do it, and I appreciate you exploring that, because I think it's been the consensus of this board that if it's possible, it would be nice to do a meeting in New Richmond periodically, if we can. If we can't, we can't, but I appreciate your continuing to look at that, so thank you very much.
Is it for the foreseeable future then to continue meetings here until we can address this issue completely so that live streaming can continue? Because it's my understanding that not all committees are necessarily live streaming, so if you do want to move and record, we could potentially look at that as well, but it may take another month or probably at least another couple of months before this project would be completed. So continuing to meet here for the time being?
Well, again, I'm a little reluctant to be the only one speaking to that issue. I do have fellow supervisors in the room here. But yeah, I think from my perspective, there are kind of two issues. One, we've budgeted for some of the equipment necessary to do the streaming up there, but I think in terms of the physical layout, Fred, that's really the issue, it sounds like. Is can we really do that and accommodate any public members who may be there, and screen views, view lines and that kind of stuff's important as well. So I would say, barring discussion from other board members, that we would continue here until we've got a clearer sense about how workable it would be to have a meeting or two or more in New Richmond. Supervisor Novotny.
Fred, has there been any discussion about additional uses of that equipment?
At the services center,
Yeah.
I have not engaged in any of those conversations at this point, no.
Okay, I was just curious because we meet once a month and may not meet every month up at the services center. So it'd be nice to have some additional uses for the material or for the equipment.
We'll look at what other alternatives. I don't know how often this boardroom is used for other alternative purposes other than board meetings, but I will check to see if there's other options for use that could be used for live streaming or taping, et cetera.
Supervisor Anderson.
Well, when we talked about it and budgeted for it, there was talk that it could be used for training for people at the HH.
Yeah, the rooms can now because of the connectivity to the internet and WebEx meetings, so it is being used for that purpose, but could we be able to connect and do live streaming to conduct a training there and connect other people in a different way? I just don't know the answer to that, so I'll have to do some research.
And there's a possibility that we could have it, sound could be made possible for HH, but not the video. Is that? That's an option. Council on Aging and Disabilities is going to start meeting up there, but we don't get videoed, so just so you know, we're going to move up there.
Okay. Announcements and correspondence? Fred or Colleen?
I just have one. Kathy Dunlap, who's been a long-term county employee, has announced her retirement. She'll be retiring, I believe it's March 18th. She's given us plenty of notice, so we have moved forward, and in her place have hired Julie Krings, who was a supervisor in that division, and Julie is well equipped to step in and replace, well, maybe not replace Kathy, but certainly try to fill her shoes. And look forward to working with Julie. And you've met her, I believe, in one of the Birth to 3 presentations that was done here. So we have then a supervisor opening, and we have authorization to fill that position as well. And we're doing internal recruitment, and I believe that that position was posted just within the last day or so. So there'll be an internal recruitment for candidates for the position of a children's services supervisor. That's my update. Or my announcement.
Colleen, any announcements or correspondence from you?
I don't think so. I think the IQM2, there might be a few changes coming with that. I think you'll be addressed about that at County Board if and when those changes come. One of them is you saw tonight. There was actually the cover sheet was shown more for more. So the background information is there that whomever puts the item in gives you that information, and so now you actually see it and the public actually sees it. Prior to that, you could see it when you went into the portal where the public didn't, so now they can actually see the background information. And then the other may come with attendance, but that's a work in progress with the bylaws, etc. So there'll be more on that.
Thank you, Colleen. One final thing before we adjourn, if I might. At the end of the last meeting, County Board Chair Larson approached me, and we had a brief discussion about the time that we've set up for this meeting, namely 5:30 in the evening. At least from my perspective, and I think from others as well, one of the reasons that we scheduled them in the evening was to try to make sure that we could allow the public to attend our meetings and have access to the meetings. And with notable exceptions, the public has generally not been here. And so at some point, I think we need to have a discussion about potentially moving the meeting back into a daytime slot. Now, I can say, speaking for myself, this time works very well for me, but I have to also think about the time that it takes staff after the end of their day to be here, sometimes for 2-3 hours in the evening, which I know is difficult. Other issues relating to building security, which I know we're working on, would require security guards and other personnel to be in the building with us in the evening. So I just want to plant that thought with the board and get people thinking about whether or not it makes sense, number one, to move it, and secondly, if we do, when we might schedule that meeting during the day. So just a final thought. Yes, Supervisor Keesler.
Well, I would adamantly oppose that. I understand, you know, if you're running a board and those individuals may be able to meet during the day because you don't have other obligations. But I think the preponderance of this board has other obligations during the day. And yes, it is one of the reasons why we did this was so that the public could see the meeting. But they are seeing the meeting. They're just seeing it from home. If we're going to move it to the day, then live streaming doesn't make any sense because they're not going to watch it during the day. They're probably going to be at work. And so, you know, that has to be understood as well. What's the fascination, I guess, with live streaming? Then you're basically, I mean, one of the reasons why we're not considering or certainly being cautious about moving to the Human Service Building now is that because we can't live stream. Well, what's the purpose of live streaming if it's during the day when people are at work? So that aside, I don't mind moving it up, you know, an hour to a 4:30 or a half an hour to 5. But again, it's very difficult to make, when you're sitting on 4 or 5 different boards, to make those when they're all during the day and have a daytime job. And so assuming that you don't want me to go on welfare and just do this for a living instead, I would suggest you help me keep my daytime job and meet at night. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Keesler. Supervisor Kilber.
I concur.
Thank you, sir.
That doesn't happen very often.
Supervisor Anderson.
The only mistake is that live streaming allows people to watch it anytime, you know, but I'm fine with meeting whatever time, 5 o'clock in the morning before you go to work.
There you go. Supervisor Novotny.
I fall in with the employed camp.
Well, I think it is true that almost all of us, if not all of us, have day jobs, and from that perspective, it certainly is a great deal more convenient for me, being in this similar position as many of you, being interested in keeping my day job and not missing too much time, which I already do for various other county board obligations. So I appreciate the board's input, and it looks like we'll probably be keeping the meetings at the time they are, but certainly next month for sure. And if we do decide to make a change, it'll obviously be a decision the whole board makes, certainly not just the chair. So thank you for your input, and meeting adjourned. Thank you all.